This video is going to be fun and educational, and in this amazing video, you guys will learn a lot about Fedora and their motives. So let's get started. By the way, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. It's gonna help me a lot. So ladies and gentlemen, let me present you Fedora Linux. Fedora Linux is a Linux distribution developed by the Fedora project, originally developed by Red Hat Linux in 2003. It is an open source plus experimental distro, which aims to be on the leading edge of the open source technologies. Fedora is experimental, but that doesn't mean it is unstable. It is quite stable and it works like a charm. By the way, there is a huge difference between leading edge and bleeding edge distro. Bleeding edge distributions package software at very early stage of development, design and research with little to no validation or testing, which means bleeding edge distributions come at the cost of stability. Leading edge distributions usually align towards emerging or innovative technologies. The main difference is that these new technologies are developed, designed, researched and tested enough to be production ready. I hope this would have explained the difference between Fedora and other distros. Fedora mainly focuses on innovation and integration of new technologies early, and they are basically the risk-takers in the Linux ecosystem. Because when they adapt a new technology, then whole Linux ecosystem will try to evolve and adapt and integrate new technologies. For example, Wayland. When many Linux distros were sticking with X11 as long as possible, and they were only experimenting with Wayland and trying not to integrate Wayland at its initial stage. At that time, Team Fedora took the initiative and introduced the Wayland as their primary display server for their distro. The default desktop environment is GNOME and the default user interface is GNOME Shell. Other desktop environments are available, including KDE Plasma, XFCE, Mate, Cinnamon, etc. You all can test Fedora right now. Live ISOs can be downloaded from their website. For the security, Fedora uses SELinux, aka Security Enhanced Linux by default, which implements a variety of security policies, including mandatory access control, which Fedora adopted early on. SELinux was originally developed by the National Security Agency in collaboration with Red Hat, and it is known as the hardest security architecture to implement. Instead of SELinux, many distros optionally provide AppArmor as an alternative for the discretionary access control. Now for the firewall. Fedora uses FirewallD as their default firewall. Fedora Linux has a relatively short lifecycle. Each version is usually supported for at least 13 months. Unlike other rolling release distros, Fedora keeps its packages up to date till the next version gets released, which means packages will be stable, but in comparison with other rolling release distros like Debian, it is not going to be that much stable, because Debian updates its packages up to a half a year later, in comparison to Fedora, which updates its packages up to 10 weeks. Currently, Fedora's latest release is Fedora 40, which is a solid release by the way. But you might not notice any significant or any major change between Fedora 39 and Fedora 40 because there aren't many. In this release, Fedora is trying to balance between features and flexibility. I am currently testing Fedora with GNOME, and while testing this distro, I feel like Fedora and GNOME are made for each other. I mean, you all can see how well Team Fedora integrated GNOME with Fedora 40. I respect all those distros who put GNOME, but if you want to integrate GNOME with your distro, then do the Fedora way. I mean, I use KDE and tiling window managers all the time, but I haven't used GNOME in a long time. Now this distro is making me to give GNOME a chance, and I will. If you guys want to see me testing GNOME and its extensions, then don't forget to comment down below. Enough talk about desktop environment. Now let's talk about some of its functionalities. Fedora uses Btrfs file system only. No, you can't install Fedora inside an ext4 file system. By the way, Fedora took that initiative on their own. That means only Btrfs is available as their main file system. That is why we call it an experimental distro. Some features you didn't like might exist, and some you like might get removed in the future. They are sticking with Linux kernel version 6.8.5 and they made their decision to stay on Linux kernel 6.8.5 because there have been reports of system failing to boot with Linux kernel greater than 6.9, especially on specific hardware configuration. For example, there have been reports of AMD systems not booting properly with kernel newer than 6.8. This kind of feedback can influence the decision to stick with a particular kernel version until the issue gets resolved. Fedora's approach prioritizes user experience and system reliability, which is why they opted for the more stable kernel 6.8 for Fedora 40. There are some of the great Fedora spins available for you all to try, like Nobara Linux and Bazzite Linux. Nobara Linux is a modified version of Fedora Linux with user-friendly fixes added to it. It aims to offer better gaming, streaming, and content creation experience out of the box with kernel patches, Mesa updates, GNOME tweaks, and more. Bazzite Linux is an atomic distribution, meaning that after every update, the previous version of the operating system is retained on your machine. And Bazzite Linux also ships with latest Linux kernel and SE Linux enabled by default with full support for secure boot. They both are great and solid alternatives with their features. You can also choose to go with them instead of Fedora. If you wanna see more videos like this, then let me know. That's it from my side. Now it is up to you to decide that Fedora is for you or not. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. And thanks for watching. See ya!